epidemic of suicides, which were driven by the inability of communities that had been in conflict to deal with peace. And the more time that I spent with Kathy mining down into this story, the more disturbed I became by, first of all, the sheer scale of the deaths, the way in which one triggered a second within small pearls. I mean, as you know, people have studied epidemiology of suicides. I mean, it actually came to the point where we couldn't report it. I just couldn't find a way to report it. I felt so devastated, not only by the data and the personal stories, but I actually thought that the whole platform that we would give to it within The Guardian and the characterisation of it and the narrative probably would have driven it on by self-mythologising the suicides to the point where we probably would trigger an endless number of new suicides. And, 3 months' work, we just folded back into a drawer and trying to find a way to do that at another time, perhaps when we can reflect back on the episode, instead of stoking that particular fire. So I think there is an occasion where, however good the narrative may seem and however shocking the figures, there are some stories you choose not to tell.
We can take 2 last questions.
Right.
So,
my question.
somebody could. Where's the microphone?
It is here. My question is to Sir Mark. Now, earlier on, Ms. Kejriwal did mention about India got under the skin. Now, what actually means by getting under the skin for a country as big as Europe and big as India? And another thing is that I followed you for a long, long time, since the 70s, and I always thought it was very, very funny in a way that the Tullys from Tullygunge, that was, and my grandfather used to work for Gillanders and Arbuthnot. Was he, your father used to work there? Anyway, that's very personal. I don't want to say.
What does it mean to be under the skin, to get under the skin of India?
I think I don't really know. Really, I think that India gets under one's skin rather than you getting under the skin of India myself. And yes, my father used to work for a well-known Calcutta company called Gillanders Arbuthnot.
In the course of your discussion, you had mentioned that dissemination of news, all dissemination of news may not be reliable or trustworthy because they tend to be fallible. Who, from the point of view of verification, who would bell the cat?
From the point of view of verification, who would bell the cat?
I think the reader bells the cat. I think the reader now has at his fingertips on a keyboard access to all kinds of sources of information. I think, the hyperlink in a story to other stories. Wikipedia, which used to be derided as a kind of unreliable, silly thing, is now as reliable as any printed encyclopedia, in my view. So in terms of checking, in terms of verifying things, the reader is in a position of power now, which wasn't the truth, wasn't the case, I would say, a generation ago. So I think it's up to you to bell the cat.
I'd like to disagree in that I think what Wikipedia, for example, represents is consensus or clever editing. It's often as not a manifestation of myth and urban legend. I can think of many Wikipedia entries that are used as reference points for sub-editors that either contain self-mythologizing information put by the personages who themselves have created their entries. Or there was one famous story about a drug.
Not mine, I hasten to say.
Yeah, it was Ian Jack's entry I was thinking of. No, that's entirely untrue. I was thinking of one entry, a good illustration of this. That there was a fear of a new smart drug that was taking to the streets of the UK. And some wise spark created a Wikipedia entry where they named it cat. And they said because it was called cat, not gat, the African leaf that's chewed, it was also known on the street as meow meow. And this entry had been fabricated by a prankster and then appeared on the front pages of most mid-market tabloids as the meow meow plague. And I kind of worry about actually what the derivation of a lot of stories are, and that consensus doesn't equal truth. And therefore it becomes ever more responsible not simply to mine down into the hall of mirrors of the internet, which does provide an interesting way of curating research. But to get out, shoe leather, I actually think is the answer, and persuading people to pay your bus fare, your train fare, your plane ticket to go and see stuff for yourself. You know, that actually is the answer.
Well, I'm sorry to come back to myself here, and I've talked about the trustworthiness of the BBC, but in my personal case, even the BBC on the network is not on the net is not necessarily trustworthy, because they, in one of their things they put up about me, they said that on my 21st birthday, I drank 21 pints of beer. Now, Ian knows very well that I have sometimes indulged unwisely on beer.
It's not impossible, that figure,
But Ian also knows as well as I do in that he has occasionally indulged unwisely on beer, and we both know that neither of us have ever got anywhere near drinking 21 pints of beer.
That's true.
So
that's
that
true.
the BBC, even the BBC's posts on the web are not necessarily accurate.
I just want to, eventually I think the sad part is that no one is able to verify the fact. I think what's important perhaps would be to take an ideological side from the very beginning, that if you believe in a certain ideology and you trust these people are following that, or you just believe them.
Well, just setting
like that.
Wikipedia aside, I do take the point about Wikipedia, but just setting that aside, I mean, the web does offer you so many different accounts of the same thing that I think you are empowered now. I think the reader is empowered now in a way that was never true in the past. I mean, when my father was born in 1900, in 1902, he would read the News Chronicle and by and large believe what was in the News Chronicle. He had no way of checking whether the News Chronicle was the source of truth. So I think it actually is, it's in your hands entirely. I mean, I think the tablets of Moses happened once, it's not going to happen again. So you have to choose to believe or disbelieve or check the things you read.
Yeah.
Right, so I think we've got to come, just one last question. Okay, we'll just take her. She already has a microphone.
I just wanted to ask you, do you agree, and I'm probably being very politically incorrect, but do you agree there's institutional racism?
Can you hold the mic closer?
Yeah. Do you agree there's institutional international racism when it comes to journalism? Because even from the perspective of people one would expect to be impartial, I can cite the example of the movie called Fahrenheit 9/11, where the entire time when the Twin Towers are imploding, they just blank out the entire screen and we can only hear noises. But in the same movie, when the movie goes to Afghanistan, there people are shown mutilated. Is it that there are less people than the US dead are? Is that what you think it happens in journalism?
Well, just very quickly, it's always been very striking that after a disaster, an accident of any kind, not necessarily a terrorist incident, but after any kind of flood or natural disaster, the British press, which is the only one I can really speak of here, is more inclined to show dead bodies if they happen to be dead bodies in the subcontinent or Africa or Asia generally than in Britain. The sight of a dead body in a British paper who was a British dead body in Britain is almost unknown. So there is a kind of voyeurism that extends to the reproduction of horror, which is confined to outside Europe. I mean, I think that's the truth. It's a sad thing to say, but I think it's absolutely true. But surely the Michael Moore documentary was, I suppose, because it was a very polemical documentary, was showing the horror in Afghanistan to kind of bring it home to an American audience. I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but I think that was the kind of purpose behind it.
Yeah, I think it comes back, I completely agree with that. And it comes back to something that Mark said. I think it's a responsibility you have a responsibility to truly humanize every situation in making people as real as possible rather than objectifying them. I think whether it is Bhopal or simply something less extraordinary and more micro. It's about finding commonality and finding the language and the story that illustrates that commonality. Otherwise, what you do is just create a series of tableaus that objectify everybody, and it's about you standing on the outside, narrating other people's lives. Now, that's a very parasitic relationship. I think finding the areas where you can reach out and touch somebody and recreate the song they sing, the context that they eat in, that's about humanizing situations. It's critical to good reportage, I think.
Can I just add something there to what Adrian said about Bhopal? There was a very famous picture taken by Raghu Rai of a baby, well, an infant rather, with his face half covered in earth, being buried. It's a very moving picture, it's a very symbolic picture, everybody remembers it. But the fact is, if that had happened in Britain or in Europe, that picture would not have been printed, because it would have been such a gross intrusion into that family's privacy that it would never have happened. And I think that exactly demonstrates your point, Adrian.
Yeah, I just briefly like to add that I think the Indian media is very often guilty of excessively showing dead bodies and also carelessly and heartlessly intruding into people's grief. And I think it's really appalling when you see an Indian disaster scene like a railway accident or something like that. And I think that awful habit anyhow of revolving the same picture round and round and round, and the picture happens to be of the dead bodies, I think it's disgraceful, I think is the only word I can use for it.
Right. So, Salman Rushdie had said for our part of the world that, no people who have the same word for yesterday and for tomorrow can be said to have a firm grip on their time. But thank you all of you for capturing some of that time for us. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pritha. Thank you, Mark. Thank you, Adrian. Thank you, Ian. Thanks to all of